Welcome to Creep to Sleep. Tonight's story is about a girl who lost her twin sister, but only during the day. When the sun rises, her body vanishes, but at night, she comes back, and she's different. Put on your headphones, hit subscribe, and let the dark in. The empty swing set. The air, thick with the aroma of damp earth and evergreens, pressed down like a shroud. It had been a year since Lily had vanished beneath the lake's deceptive surface. Lila followed the well-trod path, each crunch of pebbles beneath her sneakers a somber drumbeat. The lake, often a vibrant azure, now lay cloaked in gloomy gray, mirroring the oppressive sky and the ache in her soul. It seemed to brood. Reaching the bank, she felt the yielding mud beneath her soles. Dragonflies, jewels of emerald and sapphire, flitted above the placid water. A flicker of memory. Lily, net in hand, chasing the insects, her joyous peals ringing out across the water. Lila squeezed her eyes shut, the echo a painful jest. Their final day. It had begun innocently enough. Pancakes, drenched in syrup, a playful fight over comics. Lily, the bolder of the two, had insisted on venturing to the lake's far shore. Lila, hesitant, had eventually acquiesced. She always did yield to Lily. The memory intensified. The dilapidated dock, sunlight fracturing on the water, the abrupt, horrifying plunge, Lily's cries, swallowed by the immensity of the lake. Lila had been rooted to the spot, paralyzed by terror, incapable of action. The guilt, a frigid weight in her gut, remained undiminished after a year. She opened her eyes, the lake shimmering through a film of tears. "It should have been me," she breathed, the words dissolving in the gentle breeze. Turning away, she sought solace in the small park tucked among the trees. The swing set, Lily's beloved spot. Vacant and forlorn, it stood as a silent memorial to a life curtailed too soon. The metal emitted a soft groan in the breeze, a mournful sigh. Lila lowered herself onto the coarse wooden seat of a swing. The chains felt icy against her skin. She kicked off lightly, the swing moving back and forth in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. It lacked its usual spark. Lily wasn't there, pumping her legs with abandon, her tresses flying, her infectious merriment filling the air. Closing her eyes, she attempted to summon Lily's essence, the feel of her tiny, warm hand in hers, the fragrance of her strawberry-scented shampoo, her characteristic head tilt when listening, her azure eyes wide with wonder. But the memories were fading, their edges softening. Grief, she understood, was a merciless pilferer. It stole not only the person, but also the recollections, leaving behind a gnawing emptiness. She swung higher, the wind rushing through her hair. The world swam before her eyes. For a fleeting instant, she almost perceived Lily, poised at the edge of the park, her hand extended, inviting her to come closer. "Lily!" she rasped, her voice catching in her throat. The vision wavered, then dissolved. The swing gradually stilled. Lila was utterly alone. She hugged herself tightly, shivering despite the day's mildness. The hollowness was all-consuming, a gaping void in her existence, seemingly impossible to bridge. Her parents, They were trying, she knew that much, but their sorrow manifested differently, a muted, stifling denial. They seldom spoke of Lily, as if uttering her name would somehow shatter the delicate equilibrium they had painstakingly constructed. Sometimes Lila wondered if their memories of Lily aligned with her own. They portrayed her like a fragile porcelain doll, immaculate and angelic. They seemed to have forgotten the playful spark in her eyes, the stubborn set of her chin, her penchant for endless debates about the superiority of chocolate ice cream. It was as though they were attempting to expunge the authentic Lily, replacing her with a sanitized replica, a memory less painful to bear. And then there were the nights when Lily materialized, soaked, trembling, bewildered, alive. Lila had kept it a secret from her parents. They wouldn't grasp it. They would deem her insane, or worse, accuse her of fabricating it, attempting to resurrect Lily within her own mind. But Lila knew what she witnessed. She felt Lily's frigid hand clasping hers. She heard her voice, murmuring secrets in the obscurity. She knew it was palpable, but what constituted reality anymore? Was it Lily, the spectral figure who returned each night? Or was it the recollection of Lily, the one gradually diminishing, supplanted by something else, something less tangible? She rose, her legs stiff. The sun was beginning its descent below the horizon, stretching elongated shadows across the park. It would soon be 11:44, the hour of Lily's return. A wave of trepidation washed over her. This night felt different. The previous night, Lily had been more insistent, more desperate in her pleas. She had begged Lila not to relinquish her. She had clung to her with an unexpected strength. And then, this morning, when the sun arose, it hadn't been Lily who vanished. Lila walked homeward. The deserted swing set a silent witness to her burgeoning dread. An ominous foreboding settled deep within her. Something was profoundly amiss. Approaching the house, she spotted a light emanating from Lily's former sanctuary. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Her parents never ventured in there. It was a shrine to an abruptly halted existence. She crept to the window, peering within. Her mother was seated on Lily's bed, encircled by photographs. She was weeping, her frame convulsing with silent sobs. Lila hesitated, then gently pushed the door ajar. Her mother glanced up, startled. "Lila," she murmured, her voice choked with tears. "I was just remembering." Lila nodded, her gaze encompassing the room. It remained precisely as Lily had left it, a time capsule of a life interrupted. The walls were adorned with posters of horses and pop idols. Stuffed creatures overflowed from the shelves. A half-finished drawing rested upon the desk. "Mom," Lila began, her voice trembling slightly, Do you ever get the feeling that something isn't quite right?" Her mother's brow furrowed. "What do you mean, dear? Like things aren't as they should be?" Her mother sighed deeply. "Of course, darling. We all feel like that ever since Lily. No, I mean, concerning me." Her mother regarded her, her eyes brimming with concern. "Lila, are you feeling all right? You've been so withdrawn lately." I don't know," Lila replied, her voice barely audible. I don't feel like myself anymore." Her mother rose and approached her, enfolding her in a comforting embrace. "Oh, honey," she murmured, stroking her hair gently. "It's just grief. It takes time to mend." Lila nestled into her mother's arms, but she couldn't dispel the sensation that something was fundamentally wrong. It was more than just grief. It was something else, something darker, something she couldn't quite articulate. She gazed up at her mother, her eyes searching for answers, but all she perceived was a reflection of her own mounting fear. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed, its melancholy notes reverberating throughout the house. 11 o'clock. Less than an hour remained. Lila disentangled herself from her mother's embrace. "I need to take a walk," she declared. "I need some fresh air." Her mother nodded, her eyes clouded with worry. "Be careful," she cautioned, "and don't stay out too long." Lila ventured into the night, the cool air a welcome balm. She walked without purpose, her thoughts swirling erratically. What was happening to her? Why did she feel so estranged, so utterly lost? She halted at the edge of the woods, the darkness a dense, impenetrable barrier. A twig snapped behind her. She spun around, her heart pounding wildly. A figure materialized from the shadows, tall and lithe with long ebony hair. Lily? But it wasn't Lily. This girl possessed a different quality. Her eyes were too intense, her smile too predatory. "Hello, Lila," she purred, her voice a low, husky whisper. Lila recoiled, her fear escalating. "Who are you?" she demanded. The girl smiled, a slow, calculating grin spreading across her face. "You already know who I am," she retorted. "I'm you." 11:44 p.m. A solitary bead of water punctuated the stillness, the only sound in the slumbering house. Lila winced, burrowing deeper under the worn blanket. An insidious chill, far more penetrating than the crisp autumn air, had settled in her bones. The insistent plink, plink, plink escalated, dragging her from the clutches of a dream woven with swirling nebulae and shadowy figures. Groping for her phone, she squinted at the harsh digital glare. 11:44 p.m. Alarm bells tripped in her chest, the dripping intensified to a steady trickle. Throwing off the covers, she swung her legs out of bed. The floorboards responded with a mournful creak. The air pressed down, thick with a curious metallic tang. She stumbled for the lamp, the sudden illumination causing her to recoil. There, in the center of the room, bathed in the moon's ethereal glow, stood Lily. Water cascaded from her hair, clinging to her pale skin, tracing paths like tears down her face. Her soaked clothes sculpted her fragile form, each shiver a visible tremor. Her eyes, usually alight with mischief, were vacant, fixed, and unsettlingly hollow. A strangled gasp escaped Lila's lips. This wasn't the diaphanous, shimmering Lily she knew. This was substantial, real. Terrifyingly, miraculously real. "Lily," she breathed, her voice a shaky thread. She edged forward, bare feet tentative on the cold wood. Lily remained unresponsive, her gaze locked on some unseen point behind Lila. Simply stood, a vision of drowned beauty, a specter somehow rendered flesh. The very air hummed around her. "Lily, it's me, Lila," she tried again, a tremor of hope infusing her tone. She reached out, hesitant to touch, fearing a cruel trick of her sleep-deprived mind. Lily blinked, her focus slowly sharpening. A spark of recognition, or perhaps bewilderment, flickered across her features. "Lila," she rasped, her voice barely audible. I don't understand." Lila surged forward, disregarding the cold, dismissing the impossible. She embraced Lily, burying her face in her sodden hair. The smell of chlorine mingled with an earthy, primal scent. Lily was icy, so impossibly cold, yet undeniably solid. "You're here," Lila choked out, tears streaming, mingling with the water shedding from Lily's locks. "You're actually here?" Lily tensed, drawing back slightly. Where am I?" she queried, her voice fragile and confused. "What happened?" "You're home, Lily. You're safe. You drowned, remember?" Lila stepped back, scrutinizing her sister's face, searching for any flicker of comprehension. Lily's brow furrowed in concentration. "Drowned?" she echoed, the word foreign on her tongue. I don't recall drowning." She glanced down at her drenched clothing, her shivering intensifying. I just remember the water, and then nothing. Lila's thoughts churned. This wasn't right. Lily was never this disoriented, this devoid. She always remembered, always understood. It's okay, Lila soothed, striving for composure. It's okay, Lily. You're home now. We'll figure this out. She guided Lily toward the bed, snatching the quilt and enveloping her shivering form. Here, get warm, she urged, tucking the blanket around Lily's shoulders. I'll grab you some dry clothes. As Lila turned towards her closet, Lily's hand shot out, gripping her arm with startling force. Don't leave me, she whispered, her eyes wide with raw fear. Please don't leave me alone. Lila knelt, clasping Lily's frigid hand in her own, attempting to infuse it with warmth. I'm not going anywhere, Lily. I promise I'll be right back. She moved quickly to her closet, grabbing a thick, comfortable sweater and a pair of sweatpants. She offered them to Lily. Here, put these on. You'll feel better. Lily accepted the clothes, her gaze unwavering on Lila's face. As Lily began to change, Lila registered a shift, subtle, yet unmistakable. A glint of steel in her gaze, a compression of her lips. A veil had seemed to lift, exposing something colder. Lila, Lily stated, her voice now stronger, more assured. I need you to tell me everything, everything that happened, everything that you remember. Lila hesitated, a growing unease twisting in her stomach. The atmosphere in the room had curdled, alive with a strange energy. This wasn't the Lily she knew, the Lily she cherished. This was something else entirely. Lily, what's wrong? Lila breathed, her voice barely audible. A slow, chilling smile stretched across Lily's lips. Nothing's wrong, Lila, she purred, her voice smooth as liquid mercury. Everything is exactly as it should be. The silent house. Water trickled from Lily's soaked hair, clinging to her brow like dark ribbons. Heart thudding a frantic rhythm, Lila plucked at her mother's cardigan. Mom, do you see her? Margaret perched at the bedside, smoothed, non-existent wrinkles from the covers. The pristine order of the room mocked the turmoil raging within Lila, the heavy sweetness of lavender, once a comforting balm, now felt like a suffocating shroud. See who, love? It's just you. Are you feeling well? You look so pale. Her voice, perpetually hushed, had grown even fainter since the accident. Lila gripped her mother's arm. Lily, over there. She indicated her sister with a tilt of her head, a silent figure near the window, bathed in the ghostly silver of the moon. Margaret followed the gesture, a crease forming between her brows. Lila, darling, please. It's late. You need to rest. A fleeting, detached pat landed on Lila's hand. But Mom, I mean it. She's really standing right there. Lila's voice cracked, laced with desperate urgency. How could they be so blind? Lily was right there, leaving a puddle on the floor. Margaret sighed, a sound heavy with unspoken grief. Lila, we've talked about this. Lily is gone. We miss her terribly, but she isn't here. Panic, a cold serpent, constricted Lila's throat. She swiveled towards her father, who leaned against the doorframe, his face a mask of worry. Dad, you see her, don't you? Tell Mom you see her. Richard straightened and moved into the room, his footsteps muted by the thick carpet. He knelt, enclosing Lila's other hand in his. His calloused hand, usually a source of comfort, now inspired a hollow dread. Lila, honey, this is hard, I know. We all wish Lily were here, but she's not. You need to try to accept that. His tone, gentle yet unwavering, echoed the same measured cadence he used to explain complex physics to his students, a tone that invited no debate. No, you're not listening. She's standing right there. Lila pointed, her hand trembling violently. "Ask her something, anything, see if she answers." Margaret gasped, recoiling slightly. "Richard, perhaps we should call Dr. Albright. This isn't healthy." "Dr. Albright," the therapist, with her soft voice and carefully chosen words, who had delicately suggested survivor's guilt, the therapist whose pills now languished in the city's sewer system. Lila's gaze shot back to Lily. "Say something. Please, Lily, just say something so they can hear you." Lily blinked slowly, her face an unreadable tableau. She shifted her gaze between Lila and her parents, a fleeting expression of bewilderment flickering across her features. Yet she remained mute. "See?" Margaret breathed. Her eyes widened with a mixture of distress and sorrow. "She's not there. You're imagining things, Lila. You require aid." Richard squeezed Lila's hand. "We're here for you, honey. We'll get you the help you require." Lila stared at them, their expressions a painful blend of affection and denial. They were truly blind, truly deaf. They honestly believed she was hallucinating. A glacial dread seeped into her bones, colder than the droplets beading in Lily's hair. It wasn't merely their inability to see Lily, but their eagerness to dismiss her, to pathologize her grief. She wrenched her hands free and recoiled against the headboard. The lavender, once comforting, was now an oppressive weight, a suffocating reminder of what she had lost. Just go," she croaked, her voice barely audible. "Please, just leave me alone." Margaret and Richard exchanged concerned glances. Richard began to speak, but Lila cut him off. "Please, just go." They hesitated, then retreated, leaving the door slightly ajar. Their hushed voices, fragmented and indistinct, drifted from the hallway. "Obsessive ideation. Coping strategies. Dr. Albright." Silence fell once more, heavier than before, punctuated only by the persistent plink, plink, plink of water. Lila turned to her sister, her eyes scanning Lily's face, seeking any sign of recognition, a spark of the familiar warmth she remembered. But Lily merely stared back, her gaze vacant, her eyes like polished obsidian. Lila inhaled sharply, stifling a rising tide of panic. She reached out and touched Lily's arm. The skin felt frigid, slick, unnervingly smooth. It wasn't Lily's skin. Lily's skin had always been dusted with freckles, slightly rough from countless hours spent playing under the sun. "Lily," she whispered, her voice trembling uncontrollably. "Can you hear me? Really hear me?" Lily tilted her head, a subtle, almost invisible shift. Her lips parted, but no sound escaped. Lila squeezed her eyes shut, fighting back the encroaching darkness. She was alone. Utterly, terrifyingly alone. She was the sole witness, the sole confidant, the only one who knew that Lily, or whatever this was truly present. And that realization was more chilling than any campfire story. Whispers in the night. The grandfather clock in the hall tolled 11, each reverberating chime jangling Lila's already raw nerves. 11:44, any second now. She clutched the bulky, homespun blanket closer, the wool prickling against her skin like 1,000 tiny needles. From below, the hushed drone of her parents' voices filtered up, a ceaseless, mournful hum of disbelief. She was alone in this torment, utterly and terrifyingly isolated. Then a faint plink, plink, plink. Lila froze, her pulse a frantic drum against her ribs. It emanated from the bathroom. She edged toward the door, her bare feet soundless on the threadbare carpet. The bathroom door stood slightly ajar, a slender blade of light slicing into the gloom of the hallway. Pushing it open, she saw her. Lily stood in the heart of the tiled floor, water glistening around her ankles. Her skin appeared ghostly, almost translucent under the glare of the overhead light, and her dark hair plastered to her face in sopping tendrils. A violent tremor racked her frame, her teeth clicking like castanets. "Lily," Lila breathed, her voice a mere rasp. Lily's head jerked up, her gaze vacant and unfocused. "Lila," she murmured, her voice thick and strained. I don't." Lila surged forward, snatching a plush towel from the heated rack and enveloping her sister within its folds. "Here, you're freezing. Let's go." She steered Lily into her bedroom, guiding her to sit on the edge of the bed. "What happened?" Lily asked, her voice trembling like a leaf in a storm. "Where am I?" Lila knelt, cradling Lily's frigid hands in her own. "You're home, Lily. You're safe." Scrabbling through her dresser, she unearthed thick socks and an ample, comforting sweater. "Here, these should warm you up." Lily simply stared at the offered garments, her brow creased in bewilderment. She remained motionless. "Lily?" Lila coaxed gently. "Are you all right?" Lily blinked, as if dragged from a deep slumber. "Yes, I'm just cold." She accepted the clothing, her movements clumsy as she struggled with the sweater's buttons. Lila watched, a knot of disquiet tightening in her gut. Lily possessed such natural grace, such inherent coordination. Now she seemed adrift. Once Lily was clothed, Lila tucked her into bed, pulling the duvet high. "Are you hungry? Maybe something to drink? I can get it." Lily shook her head mutely. "No, I don't understand. What's going on?" Lila perched beside her, her hand hovering hesitantly over Lily's arm. You had an accident, Lily. A swimming accident. Do you recall?" Lily's eyes widened once more, a sudden flash of panic igniting within them. "Swimming? I don't. I can't remember anything." She squeezed her eyes shut as if forcing a trapped memory to break free. Just darkness and the cold. Lila's heart twisted with compassion. "It's okay, Lily. Don't push it. It'll come back." She reached out, gently stroking Lily's hair, the damp strands clinging to her fingertips like seaweed. "Tell me," Lily whispered, her voice a fragile thread. "Tell me what happened." Lila hesitated, a storm brewing within her. How could she possibly articulate the crushing grief of the past months, the gaping void Lily's absence had carved into their lives? How could she break the news that she had already said goodbye, only for her sister to emerge nightly, a spectral echo of herself? It was an accident at the lake," Lila began, her voice faltering. "You were swimming, and something went wrong. You drowned, Lily." Lily regarded her with a blank stare. "Drowned?" she echoed, her tone devoid of inflection. "But I'm here." "I know," Lila murmured. "I don't understand it either." A prolonged silence descended, punctuated only by the steady cadence of Lila's alarm clock. Lila racked her brain for anything that might trigger recognition, anything that might reignite the spark of the sister she cherished. Do you remember our treehouse?" Lila ventured, her voice tinged with hope. "The one Grandpa built us in the woods behind the house?" Lily frowned, her brow furrowed in concentration. "A treehouse? Yes, vaguely. It was way up high? With a rope ladder?" "That's right," Lila exclaimed, a surge of relief washing over her. "And we kept all our secret treasures up there. Remember the box of polished stones we collected at the beach?" Lily's eyes flickered, a brief spark of recognition igniting within their depths. Stones, yes, smooth and shimmering. But the glimmer faded as quickly as it had appeared, supplanted by that same bewildered, lost expression. "But I don't remember. What kind of stones?" Lila's hope ebbed away. It felt like chasing shadows, the memories tantalizingly close, yet dissolving into nothingness. She tried another avenue. What about Mr. Snuggles? Lila inquired, referring to Lily's cherished teddy bear. Do you remember Mr. Snuggles? He had a missing button eye, and you carried him everywhere. Lily tilted her head, her expression utterly devoid of comprehension. Mr. Snuggles? A bear? I don't think so. A glacial dread spread through Lila. Lily had worshipped Mr. Snuggles. He had been her constant companion since infancy. How could she not recall him? Lily, Lila said carefully, her voice laced with growing alarm. Do you remember dying? Lily's gaze snapped to hers, her eyes widening with a sudden, chilling awareness. Dying? She whispered, her voice trembling on the verge of breaking. But I'm here, aren't I? Yes, you're here, Lila reassured her, but the words rang hollow, devoid of conviction. But you died, Lily, you drowned, and now you're back, but I don't know why or how. Lily's face crumpled, tears brimming in her eyes. I don't understand, she choked out, her voice fracturing with each word. I don't understand any of this. Lila enfolded Lily in her arms, holding her tightly. It's okay, Lily, it's okay. We'll figure it out. Together. But even as she spoke, a sliver of icy doubt wormed its way into her consciousness. Could they truly unravel this mystery? Or was Lily lost to her forever, replaced by something else? As Lila embraced Lily, a profound sense of unease settled within her. The sister she held felt different. Something was off, incomplete. The memories seemed fragmented, the personality slightly askew. It was as if she were interacting with a perfect imitation wearing her sister's face. She felt Lily's grip tighten, almost painfully so. Lila glanced down, and in the dim light detected a strange glint in Lily's eyes, a cold, calculating look entirely foreign to her. A near inaudible whisper seemed to seep into Lila's mind, a voice vaguely resembling Lily's, yet infused with a chilling undercurrent. Don't worry, Lila, everything will be just fine, as long as you're here for me. Searching for answers. The laptop's luminescence painted Lila's features in stark chiaroscuro across the cramped space of her room. Hours dissolved, each marked only by the shifting sky beyond her window and the tightening coil of dread in her gut. Another article scrolled past, its headline a lurid shriek about a woman briefly dead after a crash, now blessed with uncanny perception. Uncanny perception. Lila snorted, unheard. That wasn't Lily. This imposter wearing her sister's semblance was frigid, distant, lacking the vibrant warmth that had defined her. The true Lily wouldn't regard their parents with that hollow, unnerving expression. The real Lily remembered their secret handshake, born from years of hushed confidences and shared giggles. The laptop screen snapped shut, the sudden void of light amplifying the frantic drumbeat in her chest. This was fruitless, utterly so. She'd spent the past hours submerged in the internet's murky underbelly, navigating forums rife with near-death accounts, miraculous recoveries, and shaky theories about consciousness and what lay beyond. She'd hoped to unearth some explanation, a fragment of scientific rationale for Lily's metamorphosis. The narratives echoed each other, dazzling light, tunnels, reunions with departed souls, a profound sense of serenity. Some even detailed altered awareness, heightened senses, an overwhelming feeling of connection. But none mentioned amnesia, none hinted at the glacial emptiness now residing behind those familiar irises. She raked a hand through the snarl of her hair, strands catching like thorns. What even was she seeking? A peer-reviewed paper explaining how a drowned girl could return, body whole but soul absent. The sheer absurdity threatened to drown her. Lila shoved away from her desk, seeking solace at the window. The sky was a canvas of bruised violet, the day's last light clinging to the horizon. Below, her parents' car slid into the drive. A wave of nausea crested within her. She should tell them, must tell them. But the words snagged in her throat, strangled by the fear of disbelief, of wounded pride, of bottomless despair. They were already so vulnerable, their bereavement an open wound that refused to close. How could she possibly confess that the daughter they'd mourned, then miraculously reclaimed, was no longer truly their daughter? She pivoted from the window, restlessly traversing the confines of her room. Perhaps she was wrong. Perhaps she was only projecting her own anguish and terror onto Lily. Perhaps the lost memories stemmed from the trauma, a protective wall against the horror of drowning. Perhaps, given time and gentle care, Lily would resurface, but the icy knot in her stomach remained stubbornly tight. She couldn't dispel the feeling that something was profoundly, irrevocably amiss. There was a desert in Lily's gaze, a chilling lack of empathy unseen before. It was akin to observing a perfect forgery, an exquisitely crafted replica lacking the vital spark of sentience. Lila caught her reflection in the darkened window. Her eyes were dilated and bloodshot, her complexion ashen and gaunt. She looked like a phantom herself. Action was required. She couldn't simply stand idly by and watch this mimic usurp her sister's life. She returned to the laptop, fingers hovering over the keys. If science offered no answers, perhaps another path was needed. She typed a fresh search. Folklore drowning spirits. The results were a world apart from the dry precision of scientific literature, tales of vengeful naiads, of changelings and doubles, of souls adrift between worlds. She scrolled, initial dismissal giving way to a macabre fascination. One site, adorned with garish graphics and amateurish design, snagged her attention. It focused on Irish legend, specifically the Aisling, a water spirit said to ensnare victims by mirroring the appearance of loved ones. Lila clicked, her heart hammering against her ribs. The site depicted the Aisling as beings of immense potency, able to twist memories and emotions, weaving illusions so complete they could deceive even immediate family. They thrived on sorrow and misery, growing stronger with each falling tear. She continued reading, her blood turning to ice. According to lore, the Aisling could only maintain the facade for a finite duration. Eventually, its true form would emerge, and its victims would succumb to madness and ruin. Lila fixated on the screen, her mind reeling, struggling to make sense of it all. It was just a myth, a nonsensical fable. Yet, what if there was a kernel of truth? What if Lily hadn't truly returned from the depths? What if she'd been superseded by something else? She slammed the laptop shut again, the screen reflecting her own petrified visage. She was unraveling. This was madness. She couldn't allow herself to be consumed by these fantastical yarns. She needed to maintain composure, to reason clearly. But Lily's empty stare, the unsettling chill of her touch, replayed in her mind with haunting clarity. And the legend of the Aisling, the water spirit that stole the faces of the drowned, refused to release her. She reopened the laptop one final time. This time, she searched for something different. How to protect yourself from evil spirits. A cracked reflection. The album rested open on the table, a relic of a shared past that felt both intimate and foreign. Lily, perched on the sofa's edge, navigated the pages with a tentative curiosity, her brow creased in thought. Sunbeams cut through the room, showcasing swirling dust and etching the pale line on her temple, a trophy from a youthful climb Lila recalled with crystal clarity, yet which Lily seemed to have utterly mislaid. Observing her, Lila felt a tightening in her chest. She feigned nonchalance, humming along to the radio's melody, but each crisp turn of a page, each shift in Lily's features, struck her like a physical blow against the careful illusion she maintained. She had been working so diligently to project a sense of normalcy, to bury the creeping dread that something was irrevocably fractured. Lily paused at a snapshot from their 10th birthday bash. Mirror images, radiant with childish glee and missing teeth, stood shoulder to shoulder in matching frocks, each brandishing a slice of Technicolor cake. A wave of wistful longing washed over Lila, recalling the sugar-fueled pandemonium of that day, the heady rush of doubled presents, doubled adoration. Lily fixed her gaze on the image for an unnervingly protracted moment, her expression a blank slate. Lila's breath hitched. At last, Lily extended a delicate finger, pointing to the left-hand figure, the one Lila knew to be her twin. Her voice, when it came, was small, uncertain, almost a child's plea. "That isn't me." The words hung, heavy and discordant, in the air. Lila's meticulously constructed reality lurched precariously, a minor thing, a seemingly inconsequential detail, yet it tore through the fabric of her denial. "What do you mean?" Lila managed, her voice a raspy whisper. She manufactured a smile, attempting a reassuring tone. "Of course it's you, silly. Our 10th birthday. Remember?" Lily shook her head minutely, her eyes glued to the photograph. "Number, it doesn't feel like me. It doesn't fit right." A furrow deepened between her brows. "That girl looks joyful. I can't recall ever being that happy." Lila's thoughts scrambled, searching for a reasonable explanation. Memory loss, she reasoned. Trauma, perfectly understandable, given the circumstances. The near drowning, the revival, the miracle. Indeed, a miracle. She clung to the notion. "Maybe your memories are still a bit hazy," Lila ventured, reaching to clasp Lily's hand. Her skin felt oddly cool to the touch, almost slick, and Lila fought back a shiver. "It'll all come back. Just give it a little more time." Lily remained unresponsive, seemingly oblivious to Lila's touch. She continued scrutinizing the photograph, her focus intense, almost predatory, as if attempting to dissect the very essence of the girl captured within the frame. "Perhaps you're simply unaccustomed to seeing yourself with shorter hair," Lila proposed, grasping at straws. "Mom gave us those terrible bobs that year. You loathed it." Lily blinked, finally diverting her attention from the photograph to Lila. Her eyes, ordinarily a warm hazel, seemed altered, distant somehow, calculating. "Did I?" she inquired, her tone flat, devoid of inflection. "I have no memory of disliking anything." A coldness slithered down Lila's back. This wasn't Lily, not the Lily she cherished, the Lily she knew. This entity inhabiting her sister's form was something else entirely. "It's not important," Lila stammered, retracting her hand. "It's just a photo. Let's go for a stroll, get some fresh air into us." She practically hauled Lily from the sofa, desperate to flee the stifling atmosphere of the living room, the silent accusation in the eyes of the girl in the picture. As they ambled along, Lila stole glances at Lily, hunting for some flicker of recognition, any spark of the familiar essence that had always defined her twin. But all she encountered was a vacant facade, a flawless mimicry lacking the vital component. A spirit. Later that night, after Lily had retired, Lila found herself drawn back to the living room, her gaze fixed upon the photo album. She flipped back to the birthday image, studying the two girls. Identical, yes, but Lila now perceived subtle disparities, details previously unnoticed. The slight arch of Lily's eyebrows, the way her smile had once crinkled the corners of her eyes. Looking at the impostor, these telling signs were absent. She traced the outline of her own face, feeling a peculiar detachment, as though observing a stranger. Was it her imagination, or was there something haunted in her own expression? Was she already beginning to fade, consumed by the grief and dread that engulfed her? The legend of the Iceling resonated in her mind, a water spirit that purloins the visages of the drowned, leaving behind hollow shells. She had previously dismissed it as folklore, a fanciful yarn told to scare children. But now doubt took root. She slammed the album shut, the sound amplified in the stillness. She had to intervene. She couldn't simply stand idly by and witness her sister's erasure, her replacement by this thing. But what could she do? Her parents were blinded by their sorrow, incapable of seeing the truth. And Lily was gone, supplanted by a perfect counterfeit, a chilling testament to what she had lost. As she turned towards her room, Lila saw Lily standing in the corridor, just outside her door, swathed in shadow, her features obscured. "Lila," she murmured, her voice barely audible, almost pleading. Lila froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. She yearned to run, to hide, to escape the terrifying reality of her sister's return, but she was trapped. "What is it?" Lila managed, her voice trembling. Lily emerged from the gloom, her face catching the faint light from Lila's room. Her expression was strange, almost impish. "I had a dream," she confided, her eyes gleaming in the darkness. "A very peculiar dream." Lila waited, her breath suspended in her throat. "I dreamt I was someone else," Lily continued, her voice a mere breath. "Someone powerful, someone ancient." She paused, her gaze locking onto Lila's. A slow, chilling smile stretched across her face. "And I liked it," she said. "Stolen secrets." Dust motes danced in the stagnant attic air, agitated by Lily's pacing. Hours she'd spent up here, ostensibly sorting through ancient photo albums, though Lila suspected a charade. Claiming the farthest corner, Lila feigned sketching, her pencil inert for an eternity. The silence, usually a balm between them, now felt like a stretched wire, humming with unspoken tension. Lily halted, a small leather-bound volume clutched in her hand, Lila's diary unearthed from beneath a burial mound of textbooks. Panic seized Lila. That diary was sacrosanct. "Recognize this?" Lily's voice was devoid of inflection. Without waiting for an answer, she flipped through it, landing on a random entry. A strange amusement flickered across her face. "You were quite smitten with that boy, weren't you? What was his moniker? Ethan? Believing he was oblivious. All those clandestine longings immortalized in violet ink." Lila's breath caught in her throat. Ethan, her ridiculous infatuation, poured out in florid adolescent prose. Its mere existence was mortifying. The thought of Lily reading it felt like an invasion. "Where did you unearth that?" Lila managed, her voice wavering. Lily merely shrugged, eyes glued to the page. "It was simply there. You know my penchant for curiosity. Besides," she added, lifting her gaze, that unsettlingly blank smile returning, "it resonated somehow." "Resonated?" Lila echoed, heart hammering against her ribcage. "Lily, you haven't touched that thing in eons. You wouldn't even recall its presence." Lily tilted her head, pondering. "Perhaps not. But I also know about the willow, the refuge where you sought solace, your initials etched into its bark, remember? LW enclosed in a heart. A shiver snaked down Lila's spine. The willow, her personal sanctuary, shared with no one, not even Lily. How could she possibly know? "Stop this," Lila snapped, her tone sharper. "How do you know these things?" "Those are my recollections, my secrets. You shouldn't possess them." Lily snapped the diary shut, the sound reverberating unnaturally in the tight space. She drifted toward Lila, movements fluid and unnervingly graceful. Gone was the slightly ungainly gait Lila knew so well. "Don't you crave that I remember?" Lily's voice was soft, almost a supplication. "Don't you yearn for me to be me again?" "Of course I do," Lila whispered, the words lodging in her throat. "But this isn't you, Lily. This isn't right." Lily halted a few feet away, her green eyes fixated on Lila. The shade was familiar, but something flickered within them, a cold calculation, a depth previously absent. "Perhaps I'm merely accessing memories," Lily suggested, her voice strangely detached, like latching onto a radio frequency. "You were so permeable, Lila, so vulnerable, it's effortless to eavesdrop." Lila recoiled as if struck. "Permeable? Vulnerable? What are you implying?" "Your sorrow, Lila," Lily breathed, her voice a near inaudible whisper. "It's a beacon, attracting things. I can sense it even now. The guilt, the despondency. It's also delectable." The word lingered, heavy with menace. Lila stared at Lily, her mind spinning. This wasn't her sibling. Something else had usurped Lily's place, wearing her likeness like a disguise. "Who are you?" Lila demanded, her voice trembling, yet firm. "What have you done with my sister?" Lily's smile broadened, revealing a hint of something sharp and predatory. "I am Lily," she purred, her voice oozing false sweetness. "Or at least I aspire to be. Isn't that what you desired?" Lila shook her head, retreating. "Number, I wanted my sister restored, not this aberration." "Aberration?" Lily echoed, her eyes narrowing. "Is that your perception of me, after all my efforts to return to you?" "You didn't return," Lila asserted, her voice rising. "You usurped her. You pilfered her memories, her face, her existence. You're wearing her as a charade." Lily advanced, her voice a dangerous murmur. "Temper your tongue, Lila. You wouldn't want to displease me. You wouldn't want me to reconsider." "Reconsider what?" Lila whispered, barely audible. "Remaining," Lily replied, her smile widening. "Pretending to be Lily. After all, there are other visages I could adopt, other lives I could seize. Perhaps someone closer to you, someone you cherish even more." Lila gasped, her blood turning to glacial ice. Understanding dawned. This wasn't solely about Lily. It was about her, her grief, her contrition, her predisposition to believe in the fantastical. This entity, whatever its nature, was preying on her anguish, exploiting it to manipulate her, to subjugate her. "Depart," Lila ordered, her voice shaky but resolute. "Vacate my sister's body. Leave her inviolate." Lily laughed, a chilling, hollow sound that reverberated through the attic. "You possess no authority, Lila. I'm entrenched now, and I'm not relinquishing my hold." She tossed the diary onto a nearby trunk. "Besides, I'm beginning to revel in this, all your insignificant secrets. They're such delightful playthings." Lily pivoted, gliding toward the attic door, radiating assurance and power. She paused at the threshold, casting a chillingly knowing glance back at Lila. "Pleasant dreams, Lila," she breathed, and then vanished, abandoning Lila in the dust-laden attic, encircled by the purloined secrets of her past. The air sat still, heavy with apprehension. Lila knew, with a certainty that permeated her very core, that this was merely the overture. The game had metamorphosed, and she was no longer pitted against Lily. She was battling something far more insidious, something that knew her with greater intimacy than she knew herself, and she possessed no clue how to prevail. The legend of Aisling. Sunbeams, thick with swirling dust, lanced the gloom of the forgotten attic. Lila choked, batting at the stagnant air. It reeked of disuse and decaying textiles, a scent that transported her back to a time she preferred buried. Years had passed since she last ventured here, not since the world fractured. The attic was a reliquary of bygone days, each carton a monument to what had been. Driven by a desperate hope, she sought anything to explain Lily's disturbing transformation. Online searches had only unearthed airy-fairy nonsense and tired horror tropes. So she'd resorted to this, a hunt for something real, a nugget of ancestral wisdom, a secret unveiled. With a grunt, she wrestled open a hefty trunk, its brass fastenings verdigris with age. Inside lay a chaotic mix of faded linens, dolls with unsettlingly blank eyes, and a collection of antiquated books. One, smaller than the others, beckoned. Its cover, devoid of ornamentation, was softened by countless touches. A plume of dust puffed as she lifted it with reverence. The spine's inscription was nearly illegible, but she deciphered a fragment, L. ends of Willow Lake. Willow Lake, the site of Lily's disappearance. She carried the tome to the meager sunlight and settled onto a time-worn chest. Though the pages were fragile and the ink faint, she made out the delicate script. It was a compilation of local lore, tales passed down through generations around flickering campfires. Much of it was harmless, populated with playful sprites, articulate beasts, and hidden riches. Then she stumbled upon it, a chapter titled The Ballad of Aisling. Lila gasped. The name tasted like ice on her tongue. The ballad spoke of a water-bound entity, a woman betrayed in life who now haunted the depths of Willow Lake. Aisling, beautiful and vindictive, lured travelers to the shore with promises of comfort, only to drag them into the abyss, stealing their very souls and imprisoning them in her watery realm. The most unsettling element was how Aisling worked. It wasn't simple drowning. She replaced them. She usurped their form, memories, the essence of their being, leaving behind an empty husk. The true soul languished, trapped in her subaqueous domain, a mere phantom of its former self. A chill, deeper than the attic's mustiness, ran through Lila. She pressed on, her pulse hammering. The ballad claimed Aisling targeted the grieving, the vulnerable, preying on their weakness and offering a twisted solace, a mirage of reunion. Could this ridiculous legend explain Lily's return? Number impossible. Just a story, a bedtime scare. Grief and fear were clouding her judgment. She was clutching at straws, yet the seed of doubt had taken root. The ballad of Aisling resonated with a disquieting truth. Lily wasn't entirely Lily. Something was off. The knowledge she possessed, the moments of chilling detachment in her gaze, the feeling of being watched, analyzed, when she thought Lila was oblivious. The book snapped shut, the sound sharp in the hushed attic. She needed to stop this, stop reading these fantastical tales, stop indulging her imagination. Lily was her sister. She was home, and Lila would do everything to keep her safe, to restore her, whatever it took. Yet, as she descended the groaning stairs, Lily's empty stare haunted her. The Ballad of Aisling felt less like a story, more like a premonition. Back in her room, homework proved a losing battle. The words on the page blurred, replaced by images from the legend. She checked the clock. 11:30 p.m., less than a quarter of an hour. A wave of sickness crashed over her. She couldn't face Lily tonight, not after that ghastly narrative. She couldn't bear to see that glacial flicker in her eyes again, but she had to. She had to be strong, present for her sister, even if the sister she cherished was slowly fading. She scrolled through her contacts, pausing at Ben's. He'd dismiss it as madness, her final descent. But she needed someone to talk to, someone to assure her of her sanity. Instead, she chose Mrs. Henderson, the town's librarian, a kindly woman with an encyclopedia of local history and folklore. Maybe she could demystify the Ballad of Aisling, reassure Lila it was harmless fiction. Hesitantly, she pressed call. The phone's ring echoed in the quiet chamber. Finally, a voice, raspy with sleep, answered. "Hello? Mrs. Henderson, it's Lila Walker. I'm so sorry to call so late, but I need your help." "Lila, what is it, dear? Is everything all right?" Lila inhaled deeply. "I found an old book in the attic today about local legends. I read a story about a water spirit named Aisling. Do you know anything about it?" Silence stretched. Lila heard Mrs. Henderson's shallow breaths on the other end. "Aisling," Mrs. Henderson whispered at last. "Where did you hear that name?" "In the book. It said she was a vengeful spirit who lived in Willow Lake, that she stole souls and replaced them." Lila's voice trailed off, unable to voice her fears. "Lila," Mrs. Henderson's voice trembled, "that's a very old story, a very dangerous story. You shouldn't meddle with such things." "But is it true?" Lila begged. "Is there really a spirit like that in Willow Lake?" Silence returned, thick and heavy. Then a voice, barely audible. "Some stories are better left untold, Lila. Some doors are best left unopened. Just be careful, dear. Be very careful." And the line went dead. Lila stared at her phone, her heart a frantic drum. Mrs. Henderson's warning replayed in her mind. Be careful. What did it mean? What made the Ballad of Aisling so dangerous? The clock ticked onward. 11:43 p.m. 1 minute. Lila rose, her legs unsteady. She had to confront Lily, discern the truth for herself. She had to safeguard her sister, even if it meant facing a vindictive water spirit. She approached the door, her hand trembling as she reached for the knob. Then she heard it. A faint sound from the hallway, a soft, liquid drip. Drip, drip. Lila froze, her blood turning to ice. The sound was approaching, the ritual. Silence descended, had it been her imagination. Frozen mid-stride, Lila's pulse hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Each shadow in the hallway seemed poised to strike. The air itself felt heavy, saturated with an unseen force that made her skin crawl. She regulated her breathing, reminding herself that succumbing to hysteria wouldn't rescue Lily. She craved information, a strategy, anything to combat the entity that had absconded with her sister. Re-entering the attic, Lila felt estranged from her own existence. Flecks of dust pirouetted in the flashlight's beam, spotlighting remnants of a past that felt increasingly unreal. Driven by a sudden premonition, she headed for the trunk where she'd unearthed the book on Aisling. This time, her focus shifted to the container itself. The lock proved rudimentary, easily bypassed with her keychain's nail file. Beneath a layer of threadbare cloth, she discovered a small, leather-bound journal. Its pages were aged and fragile, the ink faded in sections. Yet Lila recognized the penmanship instantly. It belonged to her grandmother. A woman remembered for her idiosyncratic ways and hushed secrets. Often dismissed by her parents as merely odd, now seemed infinitely more significant. Journal in hand, Lila descended to the kitchen, drawn to the superior illumination of the table. The opening pages contained commonplace entries, shopping lists, gardening notes, weather observations. Progressing further, the tone altered. The entries grew concise, agitated, peppered with warnings and veiled allusions to a presence inhabiting the lake. Then came the pivotal discovery, a meticulous description of Aisling, the water spirit. Her grandmother had chronicled the entity's insatiable hunger, its capacity to pilfer souls and substitute them with vacuous imitations. Lila's breath caught. There it was, the terrifying validation of her deepest anxieties. Further along, rendered with painstaking detail in faded ink, was a ritual, an intricate sequence of chants, symbols, and offerings intended to banish Aisling back to the depths of Willow Lake. The instructions were exacting, mandating specific herbs, stones, and spoken words. Each directive was accompanied by a caveat. Mispronounced words invite madness, one passage cautioned. A broken circle offers no sanctuary. Doubt fuels Aisling's power. Lila traced the symbols, a shiver snaking down her spine. The ritual felt fraught with peril, a treacherous dance with powers beyond her comprehension. Yet it also represented hope, a lifeline to rescue Lily. The journal also illuminated the spirit's vulnerabilities. Aisling, it stated, was tethered to the water. She drew sustenance from the lake and the lament of those grieving the drowned. She was also susceptible to iron and salt, age-old emblems of protection. Crucially, Aisling's illusion depended on maintaining possession of the stolen soul. Severing the connection between Lily and Aisling was paramount. Closing the journal, a spark of resolve ignited within Lila. It was a precarious ember threatened by overwhelming terror, but it burned nonetheless. She wouldn't concede. She wouldn't allow Lily to vanish completely. Preparation was key. The ritual demanded precise components, many of which were absent. Gathering them, and swiftly, became her immediate priority. As she began drafting a list, a sound from above startled her. A faint, rhythmic tapping emanated from Lily's room. Lila's grip tightened on the pen. Could it be Lily? Or was it Aisling, testing her resolve, goading her? She edged toward the staircase, each footfall measured, each breath shallow. The tapping persisted, a slow, insistent rhythm that seemed to bore into her very consciousness. Reaching the landing, she paused, listening intently. The tapping amplified, interwoven with a low hum. Lily's hum. She hadn't heard that sound since the accident. Lila eased open Lily's door. There, perched on the edge of the bed, Lily gazed out at the moonlit lake. She hummed a wordless tune, her fingers drumming against the headboard. "Lily?" Lila whispered, her voice tremulous. Lily remained unresponsive, her gaze locked on the water. "Lily, it's me, Lila." Slowly, Lily turned her head. Her eyes were hollow, devoid of recognition, yet a faint smile graced her lips. "Lila," she murmured, her voice a mere echo of her sister's. "Come closer." Lila hesitated, a sense of profound unease settling over her. The air around Lily seemed to waver, a subtle distortion that made Lila's vision swim. "What are you doing, Lily?" Lila asked, her voice barely audible. Lily tilted her head, her smile widening. "Waiting," she replied. "Waiting for you." The tapping resumed, now amplified, reverberating within Lila's skull. It didn't originate from Lily's fingers, it pulsed from the lake itself. Lila recoiled, her heart a frantic drumbeat in her chest. She knew, with chilling certainty, that this was not Lily. This was Aisling, masquerading in her sister's form, mimicking her voice. "I know your true nature," Lila declared, her voice trembling yet resolute. "You're not Lily." Lily's smile vanished. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of something sinister igniting within their depths. "Do you imagine you can thwart me?" she hissed, her voice a twisted parody of Lily's. "You cannot even save yourself." The room plummeted in temperature and the tapping intensified, escalating to a deafening roar. A pressure bloomed within Lila's mind, a swirling vortex of memories and emotions threatening to consume her. She witnessed Lily, radiant, racing through fields, sharing confidences beneath the willow tree. She saw Lily drowning, her eyes wide with panic, her outstretched hand grasping at nothing. Aisling had infiltrated her mind, dissecting her memories, distorting them, weaponizing them against her. Lila squeezed her eyes shut, clutching the journal tightly. She had to resist. She had to concentrate. She recalled her grandmother's warning, doubt fuels Aisling's power. Drawing a deep breath, Lila forced herself to recall the ritual, its precise steps, the glimmer of hope it offered. She refused to allow Aisling to control her. She would not allow her to obliterate Lily. Opening her eyes, Lila met Aisling's gaze. Fear lingered, yet it was tempered by newfound determination. "You underestimate me," Lila countered, her voice gaining strength. "I will save her, and I will force you back into the depths of the lake." Aisling erupted in laughter, a frigid, mocking sound that echoed through the chamber. "We shall see," she sneered. "We shall see the true extent of your devotion to Lily." A friend's help, a torrent of raw feeling, grief, disbelief, creeping dread erupted from Lila. She hadn't meant to unburden herself completely to Sam, yet the words surged forth, a breach in a long-held dam. She recounted Lily's demise, the spectral returns, the unsettling shifts in behavior, and finally, Aisling, the soul-snatching water spirit. Sam listened, his brow creasing with each increasingly outlandish revelation. Perched on the edge of her bed, he unconsciously crumpled the floral print of the comforter in his fist. A single bedside lamp splashed elongated, wavering shapes onto the walls, the air buzzing with Lila's nervous energy. When she at last ran dry, breath ragged, a heavy silence descended. Sam seemed drained, his freckles popping against a newly ashen complexion. "Lila," he began gently, "you know how much I care, right? But this is a lot to take in." Lila felt her hope plummet. She'd braced for doubt, but this felt like a brush-off. "I know it sounds insane, Sam. Trust me, I get it. But I swear, it's all real. Lily, she's not herself anymore. Her memories are fractured. A shudder racked Lila as she recalled the frigidity in Lily's gaze, the cruel twist of her mouth. "She almost hurt Mom this morning, and she's getting stronger." Sam rubbed his face, weariness etched in every line. "Okay," he conceded slowly, "let's just entertain the idea, purely hypothetically, that all of this is accurate. Water spirit, soul theft, the whole 9 yards. What do you need from me?" Relief flooded Lila, nearly knocking her off balance with its intensity. "I found something in Grandma's journal, a ritual, to banish Aisling, to force it back from whence it came." She snatched the aged leather-bound book from her nightstand, shoving it into Sam's hands, already turned to the marked page. Sam's eyes narrowed as he traced the faded script, silently mouthing the archaic words: "Silver chain, mountain ash berries, tears of the bereaved, water from the place of drowning." He glanced up, his expression a blend of worry and reluctant intrigue. "Seriously? Tears of the bereaved? Where do we even procure those? Some kind of grief convention?" I already have some," Lila admitted in a near whisper. From her pocket, she produced a tiny vial, the glass glinting in the lamplight. She'd gathered them the previous night, bottling the sharp, desolate ache that had welled up as she observed Lily sleeping, this impostor wearing her sister's features. Sam took the vial with great care, holding it aloft. "Okay," he repeated, his voice gaining purchase. "Okay, Lila. I don't grasp any of this. I'm not a believer in specters or spirits, but I believe in you. And I know Lily is off. Just tell me what you need me to do." The next few hours dissolved in a flurry of preparations. The silver chain posed no challenge. Lila owned a necklace passed down from her grandmother. Mountain ash berries proved more elusive. They weren't locally sourced, but after a feverish online search, Sam located a tiny apothecary a few towns over that carried them. He insisted on making the drive, his beat-up Corolla eating up the miles under the inky sky. Securing water from the sight of drowning was the most unsettling task. Lila filled a glass bottle with water, drawn from the lake where Lily had perished, the moonlight reflecting off its surface with an eerie sheen. She battled the feeling that she was capturing a sliver of Lily's essence, a fragment of her lost existence. Back in Lila's room, they arrayed the items across the floor, the journal opened beside them. The air hung thick, charged with anticipation. The house slumbered, her parents unsuspecting of the conflict brewing within their home. "Okay," Lila began, her voice betraying a tremor. "The ritual must coincide with daybreak. We must be ready." Sam nodded, his face set in grim determination. He assisted Lila in arranging the items according to the journal's dictates. The silver chain formed a protective ring around the bottle of lake water. Mountain ash berries were strewn inside, their crimson hue stark against the pale silver. The tear-filled vial rested near the journal, at the ready. "What's my specific role in this?" Sam asked quietly. Lila swallowed hard. I must recite the words, the incantation, but I need you to safeguard me. The journal cautions that Aisling will attempt to thwart the ritual. It will try to distract me, to frighten me, to make me cease. So I'm essentially acting as a bouncer for a paranormal party, Sam quipped, attempting levity, though his voice lacked its usual spark. Lila offered a watery smile. "Something like that. Just ensure nothing befalls me. Don't permit me to stop until it reaches its conclusion." Silence settled between them, punctuated solely by the ticking clock on Lila's nightstand. Moments stretched into an eternity, each tick a hammer blow against Lila's already frayed composure. She glanced toward the window, charting the gradual lightening of the sky, the fading of night. "It's approaching," she murmured, her voice husky. Sam rose, squaring his shoulders, his gaze locked on the doorway. He resembled a soldier bracing for battle, armed only with his loyalty and an unwavering faith in Lila. "I'm ready," he affirmed, his voice ringing with resolve. "Whatever may come, I'm here." Lila inhaled deeply, striving to steady her racing heart. She lifted the journal, her fingers gliding across the worn letters. The air thrummed with latent energy, a palpable tension that raised gooseflesh on her arms. She could sense Aisling's presence, a frigid, malevolent entity lurking just beyond the threshold of reality, awaiting its moment. As the first tendrils of dawn kissed the horizon, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, Lila commenced speaking. The words of the incantation felt alien on her tongue, ancient and potent. They resonated in the atmosphere, vibrating through her very bones, summoning a force beyond her comprehension. Outside, a sudden gust battered the windows, jolting the house. The shadows within the room cavorted and twisted, morphing into grotesque shapes. Lila's voice wavered, but she persevered, her gaze riveted to the script in the journal. Abruptly, the bedroom door crashed open. Lily stood there, her visage contorted into a mask of fury, her eyes blazing with an unearthly light. "Lila, no!" she howled, her voice a distorted echo of her true self. "Don't do this! You'll ruin everything!" Sam intervened, shielding Lila from Lily's sight. "Stay back!" he commanded, his voice shaking but firm. Lily surged forward, her hands outstretched, her eyes fixed on Lila. Sam seized her arms, struggling to restrain her. Lily's strength seemed supernatural, fueled by Iceling's dark influence. "Lila, please!" Lily screamed, her voice steeped in a desperate plea that clawed at Lila's heart. "Don't heed her, she's deceiving you! I'm still in here, I'm still Lily!" Lila's resolve crumbled, doubt crept in, whispering treacherous questions. Was she committing an error? Was she condemning her sister to an unknown fate? Was there a possibility of saving her? She sought Sam's gaze, his face etched with effort, his eyes urging her onward. She averted her eyes back to Lily, her sister's face contorted in pain, her voice laced with a desperate, heartbreaking appeal. Lila's mind reeled in protest, but the bitter truth slammed into her with the force of a rogue wave. The Lily she cherished was beyond reach, confined perhaps, but lost all the same. This creature wearing her borrowed face was nothing more than a puppet, a vessel for the parasitic spirit that had plundered her soul. With a renewed surge of resolve, Lila shut her eyes, blocking out the sight of her sister's tormented features. She took a steadying breath and continued the incantation, her voice amplified now, fueled by anguish, apprehension, and an unyielding love for the sister she mourned. The wind roared, the shadows gyrated, and Lily screamed, but Lila pressed on, her voice soaring above the chaos, calling upon the strength to banish the encroaching darkness and reclaim what remained of her sister's soul, begging for life. The refrigerator emitted a low thrum, a mechanical counterpoint to the frantic scratching of Lila's pen. Sam, a statue of concern, leaned against the counter, his gaze fixed on her. The air, redolent of day-old coffee and a looming dread, pressed down on Lila. She gnawed at her pen's cap, re-examining the passage she'd meticulously transcribed from her grandmother's journal. "Are you sure about this, Lila?" Sam's voice, barely audible, sliced through the silence. "This banishment, it sounds drastic." Lila affirmed with a nod, her focus unwavering. "It's the only recourse, Sam. I can feel it. Isling's influence is intensifying." She shivered, recalling the cold, calculating glint in Lily's eyes last night, a look devoid of her sister's spirit, replaced by something ancient and cruel. "But what if it harms her?" Sam pressed, his brow furrowed with worry. "What if it obliterates her?" "It might," Lila conceded, the words leaving a bitter residue on her tongue. "But inaction guarantees Isling's complete takeover. Nothing of Lily will remain." Unseen in the penumbra of the hallway, Lily stood like a ghost. The living room TV's flickering luminescence played across her features, illuminating an initial bewilderment that morphed into stark terror. Drawn to the kitchen by the hushed conversation, the familiar lilt of Lila's voice, half-formed memories within her mind now snapped into a terrifying mosaic. Banishment, obliterate, Isling. The terms were like shards of ice, piercing the fog clouding her thoughts. She gripped the wall for support, knuckles bone white. A tremor coursed through her, a cold unlike the usual morning chill, a profound primal fear. Lila intended to... what? Extinguish her? Lila looked up, startled by a faint noise from the hallway. "Did you hear something?" Sam straightened, his eyes sweeping over the shadows. Probably just the house settling. Unconvinced, Lila dismissed it and returned to the journal. "All right. The ritual must occur at the crossroads come midnight. We require 4 candles, consecrated salt, and this herb, sea holly." Grandma notes it's scarce but thrives near the coast. Lily's breath caught in her throat. Crossroads, midnight, candles. It was a ceremony to be rid of her. Terror crescendoed, a clawing grip at her throat, suffocating her. She had to intervene. Stumbling into the kitchen, her voice a fragile whisper, she cried out, "Lila, what are you doing?" Lila and Sam both flinched, surprised by her sudden entrance. Lila's expression softened, her heart aching at the sight of her sister's confusion. "Lily, you shouldn't be awake," she said gently, moving towards her. "Sunrise is imminent." Lily recoiled from Lila's touch, her eyes wide with distress. "I overheard. Are you going to banish me?" Sam stepped forward, his hand a protective barrier on Lila's arm. "Lily, we're only trying to help you. You haven't been yourself lately." "Help me?" Lily's voice cracked, rising with a raw emotion, both heartbreaking and unsettling. "By eliminating me? Is that your definition of help?" Tears sprang to Lila's eyes. "No, Lily, that's not our aim. We want to rescue you from Aisling. She's manipulating you." The name resonated within Lily. She clutched her head, groaning in pain. "Aisling, no, she's aiding me. She's restoring me." Sam and Lila exchanged a worried glance. The situation was more dire than they had anticipated. Aisling's influence had taken deep root. "She's deceiving you, Lily," Lila pleaded, her voice wavering. "She's stealing your very essence. Don't you feel it? The sensation of losing yourself." Lily's gaze darted erratically, her expression a chaotic blend of fear and defiance. "No, I feel stronger, more complete. I refuse to regress." "But you are unrecognizable," Lila insisted, moving closer, her hand outstretched. "Please, Lily, trust me. I would never intentionally cause you harm." Lily flinched back, her eyes hardening. "You're already inflicting harm. You're attempting to take away the sole element that makes me feel vibrant." Tears cascaded down her face as she lurched forward, seizing Lila's hands. "Please, Lila, refrain from doing this. Don't banish me. I'm pleading with you. I don't want to disappear again. I don't want to return to oblivion." Her grip tightened, her nails biting into Lila's skin. The desperation in her voice was palpable, a raw, instinctive cry against annihilation. "I thought you desired this, Lily?" Lila asked, her voice catching. "I assumed you were asking for my assistance, but what if I am wrong? What if it is only Aisling?" "I am Lily!" she screamed, spittle flying from her lips. "I need Aisling. Don't you dare take her from me." Sam gently detached Lily from Lila. "Lily, you are frightening her." Lily rounded on Sam, her eyes blazing with chilling intensity. "Stay out of this, Sam. This is a matter between me and my sister." She turned back to Lila, her voice lowering to a desperate whisper. "Please, Lila, I'll concede to anything. Just don't banish me. I'm begging for my life." Lila gazed into her sister's eyes, torn between an overwhelming desire to protect her and the chilling awareness that she might already be beyond saving. The pleas seemed so genuine, so filled with genuine apprehension. Was it Lily speaking, or was it Aisling clinging to its stolen vessel? The nascent light of dawn filtered through the kitchen window, casting the scene in a pale, spectral glow. Lily began to tremble, her form flickering like a failing candle. "Please," she murmured again, her voice diminishing, "don't let me vanish." And then, with a final, agonizing sob, she was gone. The kitchen fell silent, broken only by the ragged inhalations of Lila and Sam. Lila crumpled to the floor, her body racked with sobs. Had she made the right choice? Was she consigning her sister to eternal darkness, or liberating her from unthinkable torment? Sam knelt beside her, his arm offering what comfort he could. "We'll resolve this, Lila. We must." But as Lila looked up at him, her eyes clouded with doubt and despair, she could not dispel the notion that they had already failed. The plea for her life reverberated in her soul, and she was uncertain whether she had been hearing her sister's true self, torn apart. The spectral tang of Lily's terror lingered on Lila, a frigid residue that defied the comforting heat of the shower. Perched on the bed's edge, she stared at Grandma Alara's journal, the ritual for banishment, a stark black script against aged paper, the ink trembling at the ghosts of unshed tears. Had she condemned an innocent? Lily's face, a mask of juvenile fear, replayed in her mind. "Don't send me back, Lila, please. I don't want to go back." That frantic plea held the unmistakable ring of a child confronting the abyss. Or had Aisling simply mastered Lily's cadence of despair? Doubt, a virulent strain, poisoned her certainty. Perhaps her grandmother's writings were nothing more than the frantic scribbles of a heart shattered by loss. Perhaps Lila herself was deluded. She picked up the smooth gray stone, a souvenir from the beach where Lily vanished, its cool weight a ballast in her palm. Eyes closed, she tried to summon the essence of her sister, the Lily from before the drowning, the nightly resurrections, the growing sense that something was profoundly askew. She conjured Lily's laughter, a bright melody that once filled their room. She saw her small hands, surprisingly nimble, braiding her hair. She recalled their invented language, a symphony of gibberish only they could interpret. Then, like a riptide, a darker undercurrent seized those recollections. Lily's vacant gaze, the disturbingly adult pronouncements that occasionally tumbled from her lips, the unsettling sensation that she wasn't quite inhabiting her own skin. It resembled a clumsy marionette, the puppeteer's inexperience betrayed by jerky, unnatural movements. Lila gripped the stone tighter, her fingers bone white. The banishment ritual. Could she truly condemn her sister to whatever shadowy realm Aisling occupied? Could Lily still be in there, suffocated by the spirit's influence, silently pleading for rescue? Or had Aisling devoured her whole, leaving behind only a grotesque mimicry? She rose unsteadily, the chill of the floor a shock to her bare feet. She needed counsel, a voice of reason to cut through the fog. But who could she confide in? Her parents, cocooned in a carefully constructed reality, saw only the gaping hole of Lily's absence. Any attempt to explain the inexplicable would earn her only pitying glances and hushed worries about her sanity. Mrs. Davies, the kind librarian who nurtured her love of stories, came to mind. Perhaps she possessed some knowledge of folklore, of forgotten deities and ancient rites, but even that felt like a disloyalty to Lily, a desecration of their sacred bond. The grandfather clock in the hall tolled 3, each echoing chime a hammer blow against her fraying composure. The witching hour, when the barrier between worlds thinned and secrets rode the wind. She imagined Lily wherever she was, perhaps replaying her final moments, trapped in a loop of unending terror. Drawn by the cool luminescence, Lila drifted to the kitchen. She opened the refrigerator, the sudden glare temporarily blinding. Inside, a regiment of Tupperware containers stood guard, silent testaments to her mother's unwavering routine. A lonely slice of chocolate cake sat on a plate, a forgotten indulgence. She seized it, the sugary sweetness a poor substitute for the gnawing emptiness within. She ate it standing there, bathed in the cold, clinical light, utterly isolated. The weight of her dilemma pressed down on her, threatening to suffocate her. Closing the door, she plunged the kitchen back into gloom. Then she saw it, a faint glimmer at the edge of her vision near the back door. She turned, her heart leaping, and there it was, a small, wet patch on the floor, radiating an unearthly light. The air grew stagnant, heavy with the reek of salt and corruption. Lila recoiled, her breath snagging in her throat. The puddle began to swell, inching across the linoleum, its surface shimmering with an alien glow. A voice, frigid and sibilant, echoed within her skull. "You cannot escape me, Lila. We are bound together now." Panic seized her, locking her in place. She wanted to scream, to flee, but she was paralyzed by the sheer force of Aisling's presence. The puddle grew, its icy tendrils reaching, beckoning towards oblivion. Then, as abruptly as it manifested, it vanished. The ethereal light dissipated, the stench faded, and the puddle shrank, leaving only a damp mark on the floor. Lila stood there shaking, her mind a whirlwind. Had she conjured it? Was it a phantom of exhaustion, a figment of her sleep-deprived mind? Or was it a warning, a chilling preview of the power she was facing? One thing she knew beyond doubt: she had lost control. Aisling was toying with her, testing her sanity, probing her resolve, and Lila, terrified and alone, felt herself fracturing. She stumbled back to her room, collapsing onto the bed. She pulled the covers over her head, attempting to shut out the darkness, the dread, the relentless whispers that resonated in her mind. "Lily is gone, Lila. Only I remain." She squeezed her eyes shut, tears carving paths down her cheeks. She was torn asunder, her love for her sister battling the chilling certainty that something was fundamentally, irrevocably wrong. She was lost, adrift in a sea of uncertainty, unable to see the shore. All she knew was that her time was almost up, and the darkness was swallowing her whole. Dawn's sacrifice. A frigid, damp breath preceded the dawn as Sam braked. Before them, the lake stretched, a polished pewter mirror reflecting the faint blush on the horizon. Wisps of vaporous tendrils danced on the water, like uneasy specters. A queasy blend of terror and determination roiled in Lila's stomach. Sleeplessness had etched the ritual phrases into her mind, the gritty taste of ash a constant reminder of the warding sigil she'd traced on her skin. The engine died, and a stark silence descended, amplifying the soft slap of waves against the bank and the lonely call of a distant crow. Sam turned, his features creased with concern. "Are you certain about this, Lila?" "Absolutely sure." Her reflection flickered in the depths of his troubled gaze. A familiar doubt, like a hibernating viper, stirred within her. Could she condemn Lily? "No," she confessed, her voice a thread, "but I have to try." A tight nod was his only reply. He didn't grasp the intricate details, the arcane texts, the spiraling nightmare that had engulfed her, but he understood Lily, the bright spirit who'd laughed freely and painted with unrestrained passion, and he trusted Lila. That was enough. They exited the truck. Lila clutched the time-worn grimoire containing the ritual, its pages delicate as spun glass. Sam shouldered the cumbersome iron stand and the copper bowl, each step measured and purposeful. The air hung heavy, thick with expectation. Reaching the water's edge, Lila set down the book and began arranging the components. The copper bowl found its place atop the tripod, facing east. Beside it, she laid the small sack of dried herbs, their sharp fragrance cutting through the cloying, decaying aroma of the lake. "What can I do?" Sam's tone was hushed. "Just be ready," Lila instructed, her fingers trembling as she opened the book. "And if she tries to break the circle, stop her." Sam's brow knit together, but he offered no argument. He positioned himself between Lila and the truck, a silent promise of protection radiating from his stance. The first slivers of dawn broke through, igniting the sky with rose and gold. Lila inhaled deeply, the icy air searing her lungs. It was now or never. She commenced the chant, her voice unsteady at first, then gaining strength as the archaic words permeated the atmosphere. Though incomprehensible, they resonated deep within her, vibrating through her very being. The lake's mist quickened its dance, the surface frothing as if something long dormant was stirring. From the shadows, a figure coalesced, dripping and shivering. Lily. Her face was ashen, her eyes wide with a plea born of desperation. "Lila," she whispered, her voice a fragile reed. "What's happening?" Lila's heart constricted. The sight of her sister so exposed, so lost, nearly shattered her resolve. But she couldn't yield. She pressed on with the incantation, her voice unwavering despite the tears streaming down her face. As the sun ascended, bathing the lake in a radiant glow, the air crackled with raw power. The symbols Lila had etched in the soil around them began to pulse with an eerie light. The water in the copper bowl quivered, then erupted in a scalding plume of steam. A scream tore from Lily's throat, shattering the morning calm. "No! Lila, please, don't do this!" She stumbled forward, her eyes wide with raw terror. "It hurts! It burns!" She reached for Lila, her fingers digging into her arm. Lila recoiled, the pain a sharp, grounding jolt. She felt the icy, slick touch of Lily's skin, the frantic grip of her fingers. "I'm sorry, Lily," Lila choked out, her voice thick with unshed tears. "I have to." Lily's face twisted into a mask of rage, her features hardening, becoming alien. The innocent child vanished, supplanted by a chilling, calculating malevolence. "You think you can send me back?" she hissed, her voice a guttural rasp that was utterly unlike Lily. "I am part of her now. You cannot sever us." Aisling's influence was intensifying. Lila could sense it, the entity warping Lily's features, contorting her body. The comforting, familiar scent of Lily's hair was overwhelmed by the coppery, metallic tang of blood. Lily surged forward, her nails scoring Lila's face. Sam reacted instantaneously, encircling Lily's waist and dragging her back. But Lily possessed unexpected strength, her movements jerky and unnatural. She fought against Sam's restraint, her eyes blazing with an infernal light. "Let me go!" she howled, her voice a garbled echo of Lily's own. "I will not allow you to steal her from me." Lila, her face stinging from the lacerations, staggered back, clutching the book to her chest. She had to complete the ritual. She had to. The sun was now fully visible, its rays slicing through the dissipating mist, illuminating the scene in stark relief. The lake thrashed violently, sending waves surging against the shore. The air reeked of ozone and corruption. Lila amplified her voice, chanting the final verses of the exorcism. The words were a weapon, a safeguard, a desperate supplication to the heavens. As she uttered the final syllable, a dazzling light exploded from the copper bowl. Lily screamed once more, a prolonged, agonizing sound that reverberated across the water. Her body spasmed, her limbs flailing erratically. Then, as abruptly as it had commenced, it ceased. Lily collapsed in Sam's embrace, her body inert and unresponsive. The light waned, the symbols in the soil faded, and the lake stilled, its surface once more placid and unruffled. Sam gently eased Lily to the ground. Her face was drained of color, her breathing shallow. Lila knelt beside her, her hand trembling as she reached out to brush her sister's cheek. Lily's eyelids flickered open. They were glazed, unfocused, but present. Lila detected a glimmer of recognition, a spark of the Lily she knew and treasured. "Lila," she murmured, her voice faint and ragged. What happened?" A surge of hope coursed through Lila, a delicate bloom in the barren landscape of her despair. Was it finished? Had she been successful? But then Lily's eyes widened, her gaze fixating on something behind Lila. A look of utter dread washed over her face. "Lila," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "it's still here." The swap. The concluding words of the spell coated Lila's mouth with a taste of cinders. The lake writhed, its obsidian surface mirroring the gnarled visages of the pines. Sam's clutch was her only anchor, a tangible connection to reality as the world around them fractured. The very air thrummed with an energy that set her nerves on edge. Lily stood between them, eyes vacant and drifting, swaying like kelp in an unfelt tide. Heat waves radiated around her, blurring the moonlight filtering through the canopy above. Lila forced out the final syllable, a raw, primal sound that resonated deep within the earth. Abruptly, the fog exploded. Unlike the gentle tendrils of mist they'd encountered before, this was a furious, spinning tempest, a dazzling white that devoured the scene. Lila's scream was a pathetic squeak against the maelstrom roaring in her ears. She dug her fingers into Sam's hand, but his grip faltered, his form dissolving within the vortex. She glimpsed Lily's face, a fleeting mask of utter dread, before the whiteness swallowed her whole. Then, oblivion. A dense, suffocating white pressed in from every side, a sensation of agonizing inversion, a stomach-churning upheaval. It felt as if her very being were being dismantled and reconstructed with the pieces misplaced. Fleeting memories, her childhood haven, the succulence of her grandmother's pie, the comforting weight of Lily's hand, fragmented, scattered like shards of glass. Then, blackness. Lila gasped, snapping awake. The bedside lamp cast a soft glow across familiar posters, celestial charts, a map of the night sky, faded with age. Her pulse hammered in her ears. The ritual, had it succeeded? She swung her legs off the bed. The carpet felt rough against her skin, an unfamiliar texture. Her clock read 7:03 a.m. Sunlight poured through a crack in the curtains, striping the room. Lily, her sister, was her immediate concern. Had the spell worked, expelling the intrusive spirit and liberating Lily? She hurried to her sister's room, her steps silent on the polished wood. The door hung slightly open, invitingly. Pushing it wider, she saw Lily asleep in her bed, nestled beneath the duvet, her dark hair fanned across the pillow. Lila's breath hitched. A wave of relief washed over her, so intense it nearly buckled her knees. "Lily," she breathed, approaching with caution. Gently, she nudged her sister's shoulder. Lily stirred, her eyelids fluttering. She opened her eyes, fixing Lila with a gaze of unsettling intensity. Something was different about her expression, sharper, colder. "What is it?" she mumbled, her voice thick with sleep. "Are you all right?" Lila asked, her voice a bare thread. "Do you recall anything?" Lily frowned, pushing herself upright. "Recall what? What are you talking about, Lila?" The use of her full name sent a jolt through Lila. Lily only used it when annoyed. "The ritual," Lila pressed, anxiety returning. "Last night by the water." Lily stared, uncomprehending. "Ritual? Water? Lila, you're acting strange. I was right here asleep all night." She stretched, a fluid, sinuous motion that evoked a feline grace. Lila's stomach twisted. Something was amiss. Lily never roused so easily. She usually spent the first hour in a fog, and she certainly never looked at Lila with such cool assessment. "But Sam was there. We were trying to aid you." Lily rolled her eyes, exasperated. "Sam? You and Sam? What's this? Some bizarre dream you conjured?" Panic constricted Lila's throat. Was she losing her mind? Had the incantations scrambled her thoughts? Or had something far more sinister transpired? "Mom? Dad?" Lily called out, her tone suddenly demanding. "Lila's being weird." Lila flinched at the accusation. Lily never summoned their parents when feeling unsettled. She always confided in Lila. Almost instantly their parents appeared in the doorway, brows furrowed with concern. "What's happening?" her mother asked, her eyes darting between them. "Lila is being absurd," Lily stated with a practiced sigh. "She claims we were at the lake last night, performing some kind of ritual. I slept here the entire night. Tell her she is imagining things." Her mother frowned slightly, placing a hand on Lily's brow. "Are you feeling well, honey? Perhaps you should rest a little more." Then, turning to Lila, her expression softened. "Lila, darling, you've been under immense pressure lately. Perhaps you just suffered a nightmare. Why don't you join us for breakfast?" Lila opened her mouth to object, to offer an explanation, but the words remained trapped within her. They wouldn't believe her. They never took her seriously concerning Lily's episodes. And now disbelief was guaranteed because they were seeing Lily, their Lily, the girl they cherished and understood. But this was not Lily, not anymore. "All right," Lila mumbled, her voice a mere whisper. She glanced at the imposter in Lily's bed, who regarded her with a smug, knowing smirk. "All right, Mom. I'm merely fatigued." She trailed her parents downstairs, her thoughts in turmoil. The ritual had not expelled the spirit. It had engendered something far worse. It had exchanged them. Aisling inhabited Lily's flesh, and Lila was trapped, prisoner in her own existence, forced to observe Aisling impersonate her sister, pilfer her memories, usurp her identity. During breakfast, Lila barely touched her meal, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Her parents conversed about trivial matters, the weather, the upcoming school prom, their weekend plans. Aisling, concealed within Lily's form, ate with enthusiasm, guffawing at her father's jokes and batting her eyelashes at her mother. It was a macabre mockery of familial harmony, a waking nightmare. Later, Aisling sought out Lila in the garden, where she was tending to the roses Lily had cultivated the previous spring. "You understand," Aisling purred, her tone saturated with false sweetness. "You must lavish more attention on these blossoms." Lily held them so dear. Lila fixed her with a stare, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling uncontrollably. "What have you inflicted upon my sister?" Aisling's grin widened, momentarily revealing a glint of cold, calculating cruelty. "I am your sister Lila," she replied, her voice a flawless mimicry of Lily's cadence. "And you, alas, you are merely experiencing a moment of disorientation. Are you not?" She reached out, gently caressing Lila's cheek. Her touch was like the chill of a tomb. "Do not fret," Aisling murmured, her voice now a silken threat. "Our time together will be filled with amusements." Lila recoiled, her thoughts spiraling. She was captive, but far from broken. She was required to discover a means of reversing the swap. She needed to reclaim her sister, and she would do so before Aisling devastated everything precious to her. "A stranger in my skin." The woman staring back from the glass was a grotesque imitation. The face was undeniably Lila Walker's, yet the eyes, those glittering chips of Arctic ice, belonged to someone else. Gone was the timidity, the worry that had once shadowed her gaze. This version exuded a chilling self-assurance, a predator's glint that iced Lila's soul, or what passed for it now, trapped within this stolen form. She gripped the sink's edge, the cool ceramic a futile anchor against the shifting reality. She willed the reflection to falter, to revert to something familiar, but the glacial stare remained, an unblinking challenge. This wasn't a bad dream. It was a transmogrification. The ritual hadn't driven Aisling away. It had switched them. Lila, The genuine article now languished within the water spirit, while Aisling strutted about in her borrowed flesh. A tidal surge of nausea choked her, bile stinging the back of her throat. She battled it down, striving for measured breaths. Panic was a luxury she couldn't afford. She needed a strategy, a way to undo this horrific exchange. But how? The ritual, her singular beacon of hope, had detonated in her face. Splashing icy water onto her visage, she sought to regain her bearings. The water felt foreign, its touch an unwelcome intrusion. It was like inhabiting a costume that had melded to her very being, suffocating her from the inside. From downstairs drifted the homely cadence of her parents making breakfast, the clinking of cutlery, the hushed murmur of conversation, a macabre travesty of normalcy. How could they be so blind? Couldn't they sense the fundamental wrongness? Heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs, she descended the stairs. Each step was an act of rebellion, a rejection of this warped existence. "Morning, Lila," her mother chirped, turning from the stove, her smile unsettlingly placid. "Sleep well?" The insouciance of the greeting landed like a physical blow. "Mom," she rasped, her own voice sounding distant, alien. "Don't you notice anything different?" Her mother's brow furrowed slightly, creasing her forehead. "Different? What do you mean, sweetheart? You look a bit wan, that's all. Maybe you need to eat." Wan, that was the extent of it. Aisling was wearing her like ill-fitting clothes, emanating an aura of distortion so powerful it should be visible, and she was merely pale. Her father entered the kitchen, a newspaper tucked under his arm. "Morning, sweetie," he greeted, planting a kiss on her forehead. The contact felt like a defilement, Aisling's presence poisoning the show of affection. "Did you finish that history paper?" "Dad, please," she implored, her voice cracking under the strain. "Look at me. Really see me. I'm not." "Not what, Lila?" he questioned, a thread of concern weaving through his tone. "Are you feeling okay?" The name, her name, felt like a brand, searing its mark into her soul, a persistent echo of what she had forfeited, what had been purloined. She wanted to scream, to tear at her hair, to shatter the tranquil veneer of their denial, but she knew it was futile. They were incapable of seeing, blinded by grief. Their sorrow had made them easy prey for Aisling's deceit. Drawing a deep breath, she fought to regain her composure. She couldn't afford a meltdown, not now. She needed to dissect, to strategize. "I'm fine," she choked out, the words tasting like dust in her mouth. "Just tired." She took a slice of toast, chewing it mechanically. The flavor was dull, devoid of life. Everything felt muted, sieved through Aisling's consciousness. Later, she sought out Sam. He was her singular hope, the only one who might credit her story, the only one not entirely consumed by the stifling miasma of sorrow and delusion. She discovered him in the library, poring over a textbook, his brow knotted in thought. "Sam," she breathed, her voice barely audible. He glanced up, his eyes widening almost imperceptibly. A fleeting, inscrutable expression flickered across his face. "Lila," he responded, his tone cautious. "I need to talk to you," she insisted, her voice trembling on the edge of hysteria. "It's crucial." He closed his book, marking his place with a stray slip of paper. "What's wrong? You look different." A nascent spark of hope ignited within her. He perceived it. He sensed something amiss. He wasn't totally oblivious. "The ritual," she revealed, her voice cracking. "It failed. It worsened everything. Aisling, she's inhabiting my body." Sam gaped at her, his expression unreadable. He started to speak, then clamped his mouth shut. He averted his gaze, shuffling his feet uneasily. "Lila, I don't," he began, then trailed off. "Look, I know you're undergoing a lot right now, but what, Sam? She demanded, her voice escalating in pitch. But you believe I'm insane? That I'm fantasizing? That I'm simply overcome by grief? He flinched, avoiding her eyes. I don't comprehend it. It's a lot to process. Comprehend this, she declared, seizing his hand. His skin was frigid, slick with sweat. I'm not Lila, not truly. I'm imprisoned, Sam, imprisoned inside her. He wrenched his hand away, his eyes overflowing with a cocktail of apprehension and compassion. Lila, please, you require assistance, real assistance. He disbelieved her. He was unable to credit her story. The realization crashed over her like a rogue wave, stealing her breath. You're mistaken, Sam, she whispered, her voice barely there. You're all mistaken. She pivoted and bolted, running blindly through the library, tears carving paths down her cheeks. She was isolated, utterly and irrevocably alone. As she fled, she could sense Isling's presence strengthening, her awareness expanding, shoving Lila further and further into the recesses of her own mind. It was a gradual, agonizing attrition, the systematic dismantling of everything that constituted her being. She stumbled into the park, collapsing onto a bench beneath the sheltering canopy of an ancient oak. The sunlight felt brutal, unrelenting. The cheerful sounds of children playing nearby seemed distant, muted, as if she were listening through layers of cotton. She shut her eyes, desperately trying to shut out the world, to retreat into the dwindling sanctuary of her own mind. But Aisling was there, patiently waiting, her presence a frigid, malevolent tide, inexorably eroding the boundaries of her consciousness. Images flickered through her mind, Lily's radiant smile, her mother's tender touch, her father's reassuring embrace, Sam's hesitant grin. These were her memories, her life, and Aisling was plundering them, one by one. She fought back, clinging to the vestiges of her identity with desperate tenacity. But it was a futile struggle. Aisling was too formidable, too potent. She was a primal force, a primordial entity, and Lila was simply a delicate human girl lost in the abyss of her sorrow. Slowly, relentlessly, Aisling began to devour her, to assimilate her, to obliterate her. Lila felt herself fading, dissolving, becoming increasingly insubstantial with each passing instant. The final ember of her self-awareness flickered and died, a fading spark against an encroaching abyss. She uttered a silent supplication, a last desperate cry for deliverance, knowing that no one would hear her, that no rescue would arrive. Then, nothingness, absolute and utter oblivion. Lila Walker ceased to exist. Only Aisling remained, an imposter in her skin, poised to commence her new existence.